guys, welcome back to MVP Mindset.
We are super excited for our guest today. We have Miss Cam Guttell. She is a member of our women's beach volleyball team, and she is the president of the Student Athlete Advisory Committee, also known as SAAC. Cam, thank you so much for being here. Kind of introduce yourself. Tell us about you.
Well, first, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. As you guys said, I'm on the beach volleyball team here, and I'm SAAC President, and with that, I'm Big 12 rep on top of that. I'm currently majoring in social work, and I have 2 minors, one in entrepreneurship and one in child development, and yeah.
Nice. Well, we're super happy to have you on. We know you've done a fun couple of things in the NIL world and in the entrepreneurship world, so we're excited to dive deeper into that. So going into that, what kind of made you want to minor in entrepreneurship?
Well, when I first found out actually about the NIL stuff going on with athletics, that was our freshman year here, and they then had the class the next semester for my spring, so I was very interested in taking that class. And so as I took that class, I realized I was really interested in entrepreneurship, so that's when I declared the minor. And then from there, after taking my first entrepreneurship class, I think it was Entrepreneurship Opportunity Recognition with Paul Evans. He was probably my favorite professor I've had. And he really got me into that realm, and it kind of pushed me further into my minor. And the more I started taking those classes, the more interested I got with it.
Shout out, Paul.
Yeah, he's such a great teacher. For anyone who doesn't know, Cam has an Instagram that is centered purely around Chicken Parm, which is such a fun thing, and I think you let your authenticity shine through it. So kind of take us through when you were in that class.
First of all, I also want to say I love Chicken Parm as well.
Yeah, I'll make you some.
That's
Don't
how
worry.
it goes.
I'll make you
Wait, you make some?
Shameless plug, Cam Chicken Parm.
She's got
on
150
Instagram.
followers right now.
Wow. It's in my bio.
I know.
So Chicken Parm has always been a dish that I enjoy making. My dad used to make it for me, so then we started to bond over making it and finding the perfect recipe to make it. And so then I've always kind of had this joke of, I'm going to start a Chicken Parm food truck or create a restaurant. I just love cooking. And I kind of took that and ran with it in that first entrepreneurship class, and we had to create some kind of pitch for 2 minutes about a entrepreneurship idea that you had. And so I was like, I'll do my food truck. Let's see what happens. But it's just been something I love, and I love to cook, specifically Chicken Parm. And so I kind of just used that as my driver in the entrepreneurship world, because I know that I'm not here to be some innovative technology person, but I know I can be goofy with the things I do have and kind of just look at those and see what I can find from there. And that's what Professor Evans really taught me to focus on.
Yeah. Well, have those classes helped you also grow anywhere in your NIL journey?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that NIL class first pushed me into that realm. It really teaches you about your own personal brand and finding the things about yourself to bring out in front of the camera and bring out in front of certain people that you're creating deals with and stuff. But I think even more so in entrepreneurship, I'm able to see what I'm interested in pursuing as well, not only from, oh, look at me, I'm an athlete, of more like, okay, I'm a professional now. What are my values and what are the things that drive who I am as a professional? And I think entrepreneurship classes really taught me I can still use business even if I'm not a super business oriented person. As a social work minor, I always make jokes in my business classes, I'm just a social worker. I don't know. We don't do sciences. We don't really take a ton of math. But you are able to still have a business part of your social work side or of any other minor or major you might be. It doesn't have to be the business you think it is. It's all super different, and you can just very personalize that even.
Absolutely. And we know you also had a really fun NIL deal recently with Meli's cookies.
Yeah, it was actually kind of funny because Meli's did a little taste test in our fueling station down for athletes during finals week, I think our freshman year as well, and I loved them. And I guess they reached out to some of our nutritionists asking if there was any girls or guys that specifically really enjoyed them, and my name got thrown around because I think I was a pretty big advocate for the cookies. And
gluten-free.
Yes, gluten-free, pretty awesome. And so they reached out to me that summer, and we kind of just got talking, and I really loved the brand. I think that's the main reason why I took the deal. The biggest thing when NIL came out for me was I wanted to support brands that I would support otherwise and that I would be buying on my own. And so Meli's was one of those. And I really specifically liked that it was woman-owned. I think that was a really big catch for me. And so then through working with them, I got to know them better, and I loved the brand. I loved the deal I had with them. it was definitely a really cool foot in the door to NIL and kind of understanding how those deals work, especially because it was one of those earlier deals that happened before NIL has become more concrete, I feel like, in the past year.
I feel like you really like embodied like what entrepreneurial NIL is. Like you kind of found something that you were really interested in, created a whole Instagram for it, like the Chicken Parm thing. Like I didn't know that's dope. Like that's what it's about. It's about like literally being different, like setting yourself apart. Yeah. And even with the Meli's cookies, like you really loved it. Like, because I actually want to ask you, like, are you gluten free? Like, do you eat gluten free?
I don't try to. I'm not super gluten conscious. I love bread. I love anything that has gluten in it.
Chicken Parm queen.
But it is a cool,
that makes sense, right?
Yeah, it is a cool added perk that it is gluten free. And
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends in my life who are gluten free. One of our head coaches is gluten free, so it was cool to be able to introduce the brand to her and kind of be an advocate for that for her. And especially like the other people in my life who are gluten free, I'd be like, oh my gosh, try this new cookie brand. Yes. They just made a deal with me. So on top of just posting my content, I was also be a verbal advocate for them. That was something I talked to them about, is word of mouth is such a big deal, especially coming from an athlete. And so, yeah, NIL is posting and it's that, but it is also being an advocate for your brand in person. And so I kind of just use it as a platform to be like, I'm gonna throw around this cookie's name because it's worth it and they're good and I support this company. And so I kind of just took it beyond my Instagram posts in that realm.
Yeah. That's great. Like I said, you really embodied it before anybody knew how to market NIL and how to market yourself. Like you were already doing it. You were doing the values. You were doing things that were niche. Like that's amazing. We know that you also work with like a small startup NIL company, which is called Top Tier Lessons. Kind of tell us about that.
Yeah, Top Tier Lessons is a really cool company. They reached out to me this summer. They have an outreach coordinator. Her name's Journey. She goes to St. Louis. She's also a student athlete. She does track and field there, and it's completely student athlete ran. CEO is a former student athlete as well. She was a swimmer. Her name's Kara. And they reached out to me this summer basically just saying, hey, we know you're a student athlete. You look like you would be great for this job. We just want to see what you think about this. And basically my job as a campus ambassador is to create relationships here around campus, around the DFW area with different places that we could hold these lessons that they're having. So Top Tier Lessons is a website basically that you can go on as a student athlete, present yourself. Hi, I'm Cam Guttell. These are my times that I can teach a lesson to your kid. I play beach volleyball. That's what I'm going to be coaching in. And then the parent can click me and schedule an appointment with me, and then I will get the revenue from that lesson, and that is the NIL deal that you will have with Top Tier. And so right now, before we launch in spring, which is the hopeful launch date, I'm creating relationships with YMCAs, park districts, public pools, stuff like that, and reaching out to them and trying to find different places that I can be like, okay, if you're a swimmer, these are the pools we're coordinated with, and these are the pools you're going to do your lesson with. If you play soccer, these are the parks you can do your soccer lesson in. Pick which one you'd want to be in, whatever. Yeah. And so that's what kind of I've been working on with them recently, is just creating those relationships with the venues. And then from there, I'll work on recruiting athletes from TCU and stuff like that. And what's cool is they reach out to different athletes at different universities across the country. And so we have people in Boston, a few around Texas. I think we have Fort Worth, San Antonio, Houston maybe, and then a ton of different around the nation as well. And it's cool because they started in one place and now they've expanded. And I think we're in a little under 20 different cities. And so having those as pinpoints and then kind of keep growing from there has been a cool thing. And
so you really got to see the company grow.
Yeah, and like we are the first cohort they've ever had. So it's been cool to be a part of that first cohort because we're all learning from each other and hearing from them, and what each student athlete has had with their city has also been interesting because some cities are more receptive to this than others. So it's been interesting to kind of just bounce off of each other of what we're doing and stuff like that. And then on top of that, we're also creating ideas of like what if projects, kind of like dream big and see what happens. And if it doesn't happen, that sucks. But also like, what if it does kind of thing.
What
and
if
so
it
a
does?
few of the ideas that I've come up with just for TCU specific what if projects, I haven't fully put a ton of work into them yet, but they're just ideas of, we have career fairs all the time at TCU, having an NIL fair where companies can come and present themselves to student athletes and be like, this is the NIL deal I want to give you, or this is what I can give you.
Right.
And we have student athletes walk around the shoal like we usually do with our career fairs, and they get to meet all these companies that want to have deals with them.
Yeah.
Because you get sent an email, how often are you going to look at that? You get sent a DM, it might be in your request for months. And maybe you respond and they respond, great, but probably not, right? So having it like in front of you, that's where the conversations, you get to know each other a little better.
A personal contact.
Yeah, and I think that would be cool. And then another one I wanted to do is partnering with Cook Children's Hospital and doing some kind of like athlete day there where they either get to come to us or we go to them, and we kind of, as top tier lessons, kind of present ourselves to them and give them the opportunity to interact with our coaches as well. Just because even though they're in the hospital, it doesn't mean that they aren't involved in sports and that they don't want to be. So giving them the opportunity to be coached by student athletes as well, because everyone should be, in my opinion. That's kind of the social work side that I bring into this too. That's another thing I talked to them about. I'm like, I want to find a way that we can do pro bono lessons at some point, because a big thing that holds people back from going D1 or to college is the lack of funding for private lessons or private coaching or having club coaching, stuff like that, because we all know sports are very expensive. Certain sports are more expensive than others, but at the end of the day, being the best at your sport is going to cost money. And so I'm trying to look into ways to help find kind of a little loophole for us to go through to kind of make these a little easier for accessing if someone needs it.
Absolutely. And I mean, sign us up to non-revenue generating sports. This is such a great way to get people with the less exposure, less followers, and not on Saturday Night Football. Like, this is so great to get us integrated into those, you know, in front of moms, in front of dads that want to get coached.
I feel like it's trying to break that idea. Like, you have to have like 10K followers, you have to have 4K followers, you have to have 100,000 followers, like in order to get these exposures. But I feel like having that person, because like we don't talk about it enough. NIL is it's a business still. It's a part of a career. And we've seen it being made a career, like with several people. First of all, brilliant idea. And this is what I really love about your characters. Like, you were just hold this like altruistic and this philanthropic like values. Like, you really like really push for it. And you put it in everything you do. And like we see it with you in SAAC. We see it now with you in your NIL. Like, that's amazing. And I really am like glad we're having this moment to talk to you so that everybody can see it.
Thank you.
So I do want to ask though, with you in this company, like, what do you do specifically? Like, what is the work that you're specifically doing? Like, what?
So at the moment, I've really just been reaching out and contacting different venue points that looks like the YMCAs, the pools, the community centers, all of that. So just sending out emails, making phone calls, meeting in person, doing what I can to create that connection with them. And then moving on from there, we've been creating content for them. Kind of just one of the sides of content is just funny athlete content to get people following them, but then also content of this is how you get your kid to go D1, or this is how you could get your kid to improve in their sport. And I kind of took it a funny way of teaching parents how to not be the overbearing athletic parents.
I think an overarching thing I've heard from you is just being that authentic self. And like, if you see a better way to do something that comes across as more you're going to do it that way.
Absolutely.
So how do you keep that consistency with your authentic self just showing like across all your social medias, across you every day, and even incorporating your social work into your NIL and that kind of stuff? How do you stay consistent with that?
It's definitely hard at times, and I think that's one thing I ran into when I first had that deal with Meli's. That was something I talked to them a lot about. So when I was on one of those initial phone calls with Meli's, they just loved how authentic I was on my social medias, and they loved all the funny kind of goofy posts I do. A lot of them are kind of YouTube style vlogs and stuff like that. And so they were like, we understand this is an advertisement in some way. Most NIL deals are advertising the company, but they're like, we want it to look as little like an advertisement as we can. So we kind of talked about that a lot, because I was like, you know what, guys, it's kind of hard to do. This is an advertisement, so how do I not? And so basically what I decided to do was think of content first that I would just post and then incorporate the brand in later. So one of the things I posted for Meli's, Gabby was actually a feature in this, was a cookie review. And me and my dad do pizza reviews wherever we eat pizza. So I was like, you know what? I'm used to posting food reviews, so let me do a food review on this company. And that's how I incorporated the Meli's into it. So I really kind of do that. So I think me first and then company second. Even though the company is at the forefront of my post, I have to think about what would Cam post naturally, and then how can we throw in the Meli's. Like, another thing I posted was a day in the life, and I did some goofy day in the life shots, and every shot I was eating a cookie, which is really random and stupid, but it worked. And it's exactly what I would post if I wasn't advertising Meli's either. And so that's something I've been really trying to do. And I think sometimes that is hard to get brand deals with, because it definitely holds me back of, let's say a steakhouse wanted to do an NIL deal with me. That's a really random thing for me to go do.
Which I totally see you doing.
Yeah, like, and like I would probably find a way around it, but it definitely makes it harder. And that's something I do explain when I first meet a brand. I'm like, look, I want to be authentic. I don't want to change who I am. I don't want to change my posts. I don't want to post something that's different than who I am. And I just make it clear in the beginning of that relationship. And they enjoy it. Like, that's what they're looking for. That's what they want to see from athletes. They don't want a robot athlete to be like, hey, buy these cookies, they're good.
Right.
Like, you know, that's not going to get maybe if you're a big name football player, that might get someone to buy it, but I think someone who's laughing at a funny person online would much rather buy it than a random advertisement.
And I feel like that's so important now with like NIL, because like social media, we tend to sometimes make it so plastic. Like we want it, it's like these models, but we want everything to look like, and we make it look perfect. Like it's the ideal situation. And I think by you saying like, this is how I'm gonna do it. If y'all aren't gonna vibe with it, then maybe it's not for me. Like that's good. And I feel like that's really like what non-student athletes and student athletes that are getting involved in now need to know. Like, stay true to yourself. Yeah. Like that comes first before anything else. Like staying true to yourself, because that's the brand.
Yeah.
Yourself.
Absolutely.
And also like, it doesn't need to be perfect. I think that's something I also talked about with Meli's, because I would always send in my videos and be like, do I need to change anything? And you got to remember, these companies are new to this too. So whatever you're creating for them, it's more than what they would have been doing without the student athlete part of it. So they just love what we're creating. They like, it doesn't need to be perfect. As long as a student athlete's promoting their things, that's something on top of the advertisement or marketing that they already do for themselves. And so just taking the pressure off of yourself is also super important. That's how I do a lot of my content too. I'm like, if I'm laughing, that's all that matters. I know someone else might laugh too. And trying to take the pressure off myself of trying to make the funniest joke or like the best punchline. Like if someone laughs, at least I'm laughing, you know, and someone else is going to. So.
And that's great advice, because people have to remember that if you're posting something, you're getting your followers to watch these things. So if you're posting this inorganic stuff that your followers don't relate to, people see right through it.
Yeah, and if it's different than what you normally post, they're gonna be like, oh, this is weird, or
maybe
seems
even
forced.
hit that unfollow. Like you want to be,
or they'll just skip the post. They'll be like, oh, that's a weird post by Gabby. Yeah, I'm just gonna scroll post. Like if you're just posting and like it just seems random, like I'm gonna be like, oh, you're doing this because you're making money.
Yeah.
And like I want to see you doing it because you actually like that brand and because you're excited to be partnering with that brand.
Absolutely, and that shows too. If you're not excited, people can tell.
Yeah.
So that's a really big thing you have to show. Like all your videos, I hear people come up and compliment you and laugh at them, and they think it's funny and they think it's so you, and they can see your excitement show through in every one of your posts. So I think that's really good advice. Everyone remember, listen to Cam, be your authentic self.
Because I feel like in NIL, if you fall for anything, you'll settle for everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Bar?
Love that.
So Cam, we get to work together on SAAC. You're SAAC president. I know I work under you as the Big 12 rep. We're both Big 12 reps. You're also a athlete in a non-revenue generating sport. So with both those, because we've seen conversation in SAAC with both in the Big 12 and within just specific TCU SAAC about NIL, and obviously as a non-revenue generating sport, you kind of have to deal with the back burner stuff with NIL. Like, tell me what you see, you know, this whole NIL space looking like in the future for non-revenue generating sports and revenue generating sports.
I think it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be ever-changing. I think similar to anything athletics, we just saw this with some legislation with the transfer portal even. Something so concrete like the transfer portal that you think is concrete isn't. And so I think it's always going to change. I think each year there's going to be something new added. There's going to be something new taken away. I do think there is always, unfortunately, going to be that difference between revenue generating and revenue not generating sports. I think there is going to be a gap inevitably there because it's just that they get more attention, and that's how it is, and that's how sports are in America. We see it with professional sports too. There's differences in men's and women's sports too. And so I think, you know, companies like Top Tier Lessons are trying to close that gap, and they're trying to create opportunities. And I think there will be more of that. There's going to be more companies that are like, yeah, we want to focus on those non-revenue generating sports because we also deserve the deals that those football players are getting. And maybe they won't be as big, and maybe they will be. We don't know. Like it could change. I think it's just hard when you're in a non-revenue generating sport to gain that traction. Especially, I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not one of the top players on my team. So that's another added factor that's hard is I'm in a non-revenue generating sport, and then I'm not the top on my team either. Those are two things holding me back from NIL deals. But the thing is, I think one thing that you guys are doing really well with is us having an NIL suite here at TCU, and having NIL coaches has been such a good asset to especially our sports that aren't getting those deals. Because like I can come to you guys and be like, hey guys, like I want deals. And I know that you guys can't get us deals specifically, but y'all can help us like find the confidence to reach out to those people and to like find those deals and be like, hey, like maybe y'all can be like, go talk to Cam or go talk to someone that you guys else have had on the podcast that have had successful deals, so that we can create kind of mentorships within our athletic programs to help each other. we're going to see it grow and we're going to see people have more opportunities, which I'm really excited about. I think people will find their voice a little easier as it becomes more normal for people to have these deals, especially the non-revenue generating ones.
Wow.
I really liked how you hit on, like, the thing we don't talk about, I think, enough is the fact that if you are not killing it in your sport, if you're non-revenue generating, like, yeah, I ain't gonna lie, NIL ain't gonna do much for you.
It's
Yeah.
harder.
It's hard.
It's harder.
Like, unfortunately, you need to be in a sport, like you said, that's getting TV time.
Yeah.
That collectives are sending money to, like, our donors are sending money to.
Yeah.
Like,
and if you're not, you need to have that presence in another
Well,
spot.
and the
like
thing
on your
is,
socials.
and we talked about this earlier, like how my content is super authentic.
Yeah.
That's the way I went with it because I knew that's how I would get my deals.
Totally.
I knew that I would get it because I'm funny online.
Yeah.
don't hesitate, you're funny. There's a little hesitation. You saw
Yeah.
that.
I don't like calling myself funny, but I
You
know I
are.
You're
am.
hilarious.
And I knew I could get deals that way. I'm like, yeah, I'm not the best beach volleyball player in the world. I am the shortest, so I could take that.
Call it out for what it is.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like it is what it is. But I knew that I'd have to take a different stance on it. So that's another thing I think that is going to get big too, of like, this girl's funny. I know she might not be the best at her sport, but she's funny.
And you know you are in that relatable. Because how many
Exactly.
people are the best in their sport?
No, it's true.
5.
It's true.
And yeah, and that's another
Like-
thing is like, I embrace that I'm on the bench and I'm able to
Yeah.
joke about that online, and that makes other people feel heard.
Yes.
Because they're like, yeah, it is funny that I've been a bench warmer for 4 years.
Yeah.
I'll call it how it is. I've been in a match twice.
And you're a shared experience with so many other
Exactly.
people out there.
It is so normal to be not fully in the lineup
And
your
I feel like
sport.
that's what people need to see, though.
Yeah.
Because like,
Yes,
it's like,
visibility.
especially with high schoolers coming in that are being recruited to especially to anything, Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, JUCO.
You're still putting in the exact same effort. And
true.
so I think it's worth still being funny online about it and,
agree.
catching people's eye, because not a lot of people are open about not playing. And I love being not open about playing. I think it's funny. I think it's funny to make
Like
fun of myself.
Like Gabby said, it's relatable.
Exactly.
It's a thing. Sometimes when you come in, you thought you might have been the best in high school. I ain't gonna lie, my coach said it best. Every coming from high school, we were all used to winning. Somebody got to lose at the end of the day.
Exactly.
You're racing.
Sports are a
against-
game of losing.
It's a game of losing. For us, like racing is, you might be racing. All of y'all could have been state champs.
Yeah.
Somebody still got to lose. College athletics is hard.
Yeah.
I always say being a student athlete is a full-time job.
Absolutely.
We're already seeing NCAA try to call us somewhat
Yeah.
make that a thing. But like that was spot on. Sorry, you hit a spot in my
And
chest.
I mean, they almost made us employees.
Yeah.
With some
Yeah.
legislation.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like,
Oh.
that was, yeah.
Yeah, and talking a little more about that. So we're a part of the Big 12.
Mm-hmm.
Is it challenging to kind of manage having a school in every time zone? And that means different legislation per state,
Mm-hmm.
different things going on in the same conference. How do you kind of handle that, being our Big 12 rep and our SAAC president?
It's definitely difficult, and that's one thing we kind of joked about over the summer when we were at a forum, like that we're in all 4 time zones.
Yeah.
I think it's 4. I don't know how many time zones we actually
it's
have,
a-
but
it's a few.
we have a school in every time zone.
Yeah.
And so even scheduling a monthly meeting was the hardest thing in the world, because
Right? Oh my
it's
gosh.
5 p.m. somewhere where it's going to be 9 p.m. in another
Yes.
place. And so I do think that's interesting in the NIL front too, of there's different legislation at each state. And that has been, I think in the beginning they talked about this more because I know other schools are regulating it a lot more now, but that's a big recruiting pool. And that's a hard thing of, if a public school can do more because we're a private school and we're both in the Big 12, what's pulling that athlete from each school?
Facts.
And so I think that's going to be something that a lot of schools run into as well, is how are we going to get recruits to come here over the school next to us if we're both in the same conference, we have all of the same stuff, similar level of skill probably, but they have an easier NIL legislation than we do.
Right. Cam, we always ask our guests this. What does an MVP mindset mean to you?
To me, it means just attacking the day. And I think that's something that I always kind of try to focus on throughout my day, is how can I make this day my best day ever kind of thing. That's something I used to grow up saying. It's actually a really random quote that I've had on a t-shirt for since I was in 8th grade, or I think even before that. And it's from a triathlon I did. It's something super random, but I've always just been pushing myself to make my day the best day ever. And so I think MVP mindset's very similar, where how can you make yourself the best version of yourself, and how can you make your day the best? How can you make your practice the best? Everything in every asset of your life. And so just attacking the day and making it the best you can.
Cam, it's always a pleasure to get to talk to you. I'm so happy that everyone on our podcast got to see how amazing you are and all your amazing advice. It was so great having you.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I really enjoyed talking to you guys today.
Yeah.
Of course. You already know, if you liked what you saw, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell to always know when we're posting, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.